On Christmas morning, my sister screamed with joy as she opened a brand new MacBook. My brother grinned, holding his latest iPhone. When it got to me, I smiled and opened my gift slowly. It was a mug, the same cracked one I gave my mom last year. Thank you so much for watching my story. Let me know, where are you watching from? I'd love to hear. I used to love Christmas. Not for the gifts, really, but for the feeling it brought. The lights, the laughter, the smell of jollof rice filling the house. The way we all squeezed into one room, teasing each other and sharing stories. I thought it was magical. I thought we were close. But maybe I was just imagining things. My name is Zoya. I'm 29 now, and I live in Ibadan. I'm the quiet one in my family, the one who never argues, who remembers everyone's birthdays, who never asks for much. My mom always said, "You're my calm in the storm." But sometimes I wonder if that was just her way of saying, "You're easy to forget." This Christmas morning, we gathered like always. My sister jumped up when she saw her gift, a brand new MacBook. "I needed this for my graphic design," she squealed. My brother got an iPhone, latest model. He grinned and took selfies right there in front of us. And then it was my turn. I smiled, pretending not to expect anything. I unwrapped the box slowly, and there it was. A mug. The same exact mug I had given my mom last year. Still had the little crack at the bottom. I laughed quietly, but my heart sank. No one noticed. They were too busy with their gadgets. I tried not to feel it. I told myself it didn't matter. Gifts aren't everything. But then why did it feel like I didn't matter? I cleaned the kitchen after breakfast alone. My sister and brother were busy posting their gifts online. My parents didn't even ask how I was doing. Maybe being the strong one made them think I didn't need love, or effort, or attention. But I do. I sat outside later that night and looked up at the sky. The stars were quiet. I thought about the little girl I used to be, who made handmade cards, who saved up her small allowance to buy gifts for everyone. I wondered what she would think now. Maybe it's time I stop waiting for people to see me. Maybe it's time I start giving myself the love I've always given them. They never had to ask. I always knew what they needed. When Mama's wristwatch stopped ticking, I swapped the battery while she napped. I even reset the time to her favorite radio show. She thought it started working on its own. I just smiled. When Hanifa's laptop died 2 weeks before her thesis deadline, I handed her mine. I said I wasn't really using it. Truth is, I was planning to sell it to buy a proper mattress. The springs in mine had started bruising my back, but I gave it away. Like always, on the 15th of every month, I send $50 to my aunt's account. She never says thank you, just texts. God always shows up. I want to reply, it's not God. It's me. But I don't. I just say amen and log out. I've walked home in the rain in heels just to save $3 on a cab, so I could afford someone else's birthday cake. When Farouk needed help registering his car, I skipped my groceries that week, ate cereal for dinner, and wore a smile to work like everything was fine. They don't see any of that. To them, I'm the reliable one, the strong one. What that really means is, I don't complain. And maybe that's on me. Maybe my silence is what made me invisible. They don't notice the peeling soles of my shoes, or that I keep rotating the same 4 outfits. They just say, Zoya doesn't care about fashion. But I do. I used to dream of moving out, of living alone in a quiet apartment with soft yellow curtains and time to paint. I wanted to go to art school in Ghana, maybe even travel. But dreams feel like luxuries when you're everyone's backup plan. And no, I never asked for recognition. I didn't want applause. But sometimes, I just want someone to ask me how I'm doing, and actually listen. I used to believe love meant giving without keeping score. But lately I wonder, do they love me? Or do they just love what I can do? Because some days, I don't feel like a person anymore. I feel like a walking bank account. They say, Zoya never says no. But the truth is, I'm afraid to. What if the love stops when the help does? So I keep giving. Quietly. Constantly. Like it's my job. Like my worth is tied to the dollar signs they don't even see. But inside, I'm running on empty. Not broken money, broken meaning. And maybe that's the kind of poor no one talks about. I started planning in October. Not because I'm organized, but because I needed time. Time to make it right. To make it feel like something beyond an obligation. This year, I didn't want to just give. I wanted the giving to say something. To say I'm here. I matter. I kept a little notebook in my bag. One of those cheap spiral ones with soft paper. Every page had a name at the top and a few lines beneath it. Memories, things they once said they loved. Jokes I'd remembered that nobody thought I was listening to. Farouk once mentioned how he missed Papa's cologne, the original green bottle. Took me 3 days and 2 shady vendors to find the exact scent. Hanifa always doodled stars in her notebook. I found a calligrapher to ink them into her card by hand. Aunt Titi loves sunflowers, so I picked out gold wax seals with sunflower imprint. I even changed my handwriting. I practiced it, softer loops, wider curves. More personal. It felt ridiculous, but something about that effort made it feel sacred. Then came the money. Not just random bills. Each amount was precise, tied to something they needed but never asked for. I calculated it down to the cent. The dollar amount matched their rent, their school fees, their fuel bill, their overdue internet. But I didn't write any of that down. I didn't want it to feel like a receipt. I just wanted them to feel thought of, for once. Each envelope was chosen carefully. Not red, too loud. Not white, too cold. I found a soft champagne gold set from a vendor in Bodija. They shimmered slightly in the light, subtle, like what I hoped they'd notice in me. I wrote their names in ink, not just to Mama or to Farouk. Full names, like they were royalty, because that's how I've always treated them. But I didn't just write their names, I whispered them as I did it, maybe hoping the universe would hear and nudge something in their hearts. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend. She would have told me to lower my expectations, to brace myself. But I didn't want to be braced. I wanted to believe. I stacked the envelopes on my desk, one by one. Each felt heavier than paper. Each one was a quiet version of me saying, I see you. Do you see me? And then came the part one never expected, fear. What if they didn't open them? Or worse, opened them and said nothing? What if it all blended into the background like everything else I do? I stood in front of the mirror, holding one envelope to my chest. I didn't recognize my own face, the soft hope in my eyes, the way I was holding my breath without realizing it. This wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about being seen, for the first time in years. This time, I wanted more than polite laughter and empty. I wanted them to feel the way I've always made sure they don't feel. Alone, overlooked, invisible. But part of me knew. I wasn't just giving them gifts. I was offering them the last version of myself willing to give without being seen. And I wasn't sure what I'd do if they didn't take it. I didn't knock. I never do on Christmas. It's the one day the door is always open, even if the hearts inside aren't. The warmth hit me first, not the emotional kind, the physical kind. The house was full. Too many bodies, too much food, the AC fighting a losing battle. The scent of pepper soup, fried plantain, and lemon floor cleaner swirled in the air, along with high-pitched laughter, and the crinkle of wrapping paper being torn apart like Christmas was a sport. No one noticed me at first. I stood at the edge of the living room, taking it all in. Mama's tree stood taller this year, decorated with ornaments that clearly didn't come from any discount bin. Silver garlands shimmered under soft white lights. There were at least 20 gift boxes beneath it, maybe more. Farouk, you day mad-o. This one na iPhone 15, someone yelled. Farouk held it up like a trophy, surrounded by cousins, all trying to get a closer look. Across the room, Hanifa was already crying. Someone had handed her a MacBook, brand new, still wrapped in its box. She was laughing through her tears. I can't believe it, she kept repeating. I didn't even tell anyone I needed this. Someone had known. Someone had paid attention. I felt the bag of envelopes shift slightly in my hand. Zoya, Mama's voice cut through the noise. I turned. She was in a brightly patterned wrapper, hands coated in flour. Her face lit up with that same default pride she always wore when I showed up. Not joy. Not affection. Just approval, like I'd turned in homework early. You're just in time for jollof, she said, already turning toward the kitchen. No hug. No eye contact. People began noticing me now, offering distracted waves, half smiles, mid-sentence nods. Nobody asked what was in my hand. Nobody asked how I was. I slipped off my shoes and stepped inside. The air was loud, not just from music and talking, but from the sheer weight of energy. It was chaos, but not the cruel kind. This was the kind of chaos people celebrated. The kind people post on Instagram. The kind I used to mistake for love. A cousin passed me with a plate stacked high with fried meat. Zoya, come chop now, she said, not even slowing down. I smiled. Reflex. The kitchen was a flurry of hands and clattering pots. Aunties delegating like generals, teenagers rolling their eyes and still obeying. The sink was already overflowing with dishes no one would admit to using. I stood there for a few moments, still holding the bag like it was part of me. Something I couldn't put down, not yet. I watched Mama direct a cousin to add more spice to the rice. She caught me watching, smiled again, the same smile. Efficient. Hollow. You know where your room is, she said. It wasn't a room. It was a corner of the house with a mattress and a curtain. But it was always my room. I nodded and walked past her. In the hallway, I passed Hanifa. She was still cradling the laptop like it was fragile. Her eyes were red but happy. She hugged me without asking, squeezing tight. Zoya, she whispered. This Christmas. I don't even know how to describe it. I nodded again. Words felt like glass in my throat. I feel so seen, she said, and the sentence hit me like wind against a bruise. I smiled at her, another reflex, and walked to the back of the house. My room was untouched, the curtains still drawn halfway across the entry. I sat on the edge of the mattress and placed the bag down gently in front of me. The envelopes were still pristine, untouched, too beautiful for this place. Or maybe just too fragile. I didn't open the bag. I didn't need to. I'd already started to understand something I hadn't wanted to believe. This house was full. Of people. Of gifts. Of noise. Of joy. But not space. Not for me. Not really. It was the last gift under the tree. Everyone had already gone. Some people had even unbuttoned their jeans, full from rice and fried chicken. Laughter hung heavy in the air. Wrapping paper littered the floor like confetti. The kind of mess people celebrate. I hadn't moved from my spot by the wall. Mama clapped her hands once. There's still one more. Zoya's gift. I looked up. Everyone turned toward me like I was a footnote. She handed me a small, squashed bag, the kind usually given at baby showers. No ribbon, just a crinkled paper handle threatening to tear. I knew immediately. I knew before I opened it. Something about the weight, or lack of it, told me what was inside wasn't new. Maybe wasn't even meant for me. But I reached in anyway, careful not to let my hand tremble. Fingers wrapped around ceramic. A mug. No, the mug. Faded lilac with tiny roses near the rim. The one I bought last year at a craft market. The one I wrapped myself in brown paper and tied with a string. The one I gave Mama when I still believed in thoughtful gestures. It had a small chip now, bottom edge. I turned it slightly. Inside, a coffee ring curved along the base like a bruise that never got washed out. I stared at it longer than I should have. Mama was smiling. Not maliciously. Not carelessly either. Just the way people smile when they think something small is enough. You never want anything, she said, like that explained everything. The room responded with polite laughter. The kind that doesn't carry joy, just obedience. Hanifa chuckled. Farouk looked down, pretending to be busy on his phone. I forced a smile. The kind that pulls at your face like it's made of thread. I wanted to ask, did you forget where this came from? I wanted to say, this was mine once. But all I could hear was the sound of the mug settling into my palm. Familiar, unwanted, like a memory I didn't ask for. I said nothing. That was my role, after all. Someone muttered, at least it's practical. Another voice chimed in. Zoya doesn't like flashy things anyway. That part stung more than I expected. I do like things. I just learned long ago not to ask for them. Not because I didn't think I deserved them, but because no one ever asked what I liked. They just decided. That mug was the perfect metaphor for how I felt in this house. Once given with care. Then forgotten. Then returned. Not as a token of remembrance, but as proof they never saw me to begin with. I held it up like a trophy. Thank you, I said. It wasn't sarcasm. I meant it somehow. Thank you for finally showing me what I hadn't wanted to believe. That here, in this house, my value was measured by how quietly I stayed useful. How little I asked for. How easily I could be recycled. Mama was already moving on, calling someone to help with plates. I placed the mug back in the bag and set it beside me. The handle tore slightly when it touched the floor. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever does. The envelopes felt heavier now. Not because of the money inside, that part had long lost its weight. But because of what they had come to represent. The final effort. The last offering. A test I hadn't admitted I was running. I had imagined the moment dozens of times in my head. Handing them out one by one, the surprised expressions, the quiet gratitude, maybe even a few real thank yous. But now, in this room, watching them all carry on like I was made of furniture, that fantasy collapsed in on itself. Aunt Titi laughed from across the room, throwing her head back dramatically as she showed off her new watch to the others. Imported, she kept saying. Real leather. I remembered when her electricity was about to be cut, and I paid the overdue balance while standing in line at a pharmacy. She didn't remember. I could tell. Hanifa was taking selfies with her MacBook, holding it like a newborn. Post it, someone shouted. Make sure they see what you got. No one looked my way. They weren't ignoring me on purpose. That would have been easier to accept. No, this was worse. They simply didn't register me as someone who needed noticing. I was just the dependable thread woven into the background of their lives. Useful, never centered. Quiet, always present. I reached into my bag and touched the envelopes. The gold calligraphy shimmered faintly under the light. One of them said Farouk. I had calculated his exactly. Enough to cover his last semester's insurance, plus a little extra for the new tires he mentioned in passing. Another was labeled TT, sealed with a sunflower sticker. The kind she once said reminded her of peace. But peace is expensive when no one values the price you paid to keep it. I pulled them out slowly. My fingers hesitated. I looked around. Not a single person was paying attention. And that's when it hit me. They weren't expecting anything from me. They were assuming it. Not with anticipation or hope, but with entitlement. Like breath, invisible and automatic. It wasn't just what they didn't say. It was what they didn't even imagine they needed to say. There was no thought of, maybe Zoya wants to be celebrated too. There was only Zoya will handle it. Because I always do. Because I always did. I looked at the envelopes, still untouched, still full of all the meaning I had poured into them. And then something inside me cracked. Quietly, almost respectfully, I slid the stack back into the bag. Aunt TT noticed the movement and tilted her head. Zoya, she asked, her voice syrupy with faux curiosity. She nodded at the bag. What's in there? You know we're waiting for our own O. The room quieted slightly. Not fully, just enough for me to hear my own breath. I stood up. The silence widened. I looked at her, then at the others. You already got it, I said. TT blinked, confused. Got what? I paid your rent all year. Her mouth opened, then closed. Across the room, Farouk shifted uncomfortably. Hanifa froze. No one said anything. For the first time in years, no one had a comeback. No jokes. No shifting blame. No clever deflections. Just stillness. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was worse, it was real. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just let the silence grow roots in the space they had never allowed me to occupy before. Then calmly, I picked up my bag, still full, and walked toward the door. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they'd borrowed without asking. No one tried to stop me. That, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. The cold didn't bother me. What got to me was how quickly the house faded behind, like it had already moved on, like I hadn't just cracked the foundation of something everyone assumed would last forever. Snowflakes clung to my scarf. The world was suddenly so quiet, the kind of quiet I had always given to them. Soft, undemanding, easy to ignore. I reached the car and unlocked it with trembling fingers. The air was dense with winter and words unspoken. Then the front door opened. Zoya, someone called. Not Mama. Not even Titi. Farouk's voice, stiff with uncertainty. Come on, don't go like this. I didn't answer. Behind him, a second voice layered over the first. You're overreacting. That one stung. It wasn't even addressed to me. Just thrown out into the air like an excuse. As if silence and fatigue were dramatic. As if years of sacrifice could be shrugged off with a phrase that fit better in a WhatsApp group than a heart. Zoya, please, someone else tried. And then I heard footsteps. Hanifa. She always had the softest steps, a habit from years of sneaking around at night to study in peace. She was still that girl, just taller, louder, more absorbed in her world, still somehow expecting me to catch her when life got messy. She caught up just as I opened the car door. Zoya, don't, she said out of breath. Please don't go yet. I turned slightly, enough to see her, cheeks flushed from the cold, her MacBook still in her arms like a security blanket. You left it, she added, gesturing to the house. The bag, the envelopes, whatever you. They're not for you, I said evenly. Her face flickered, confusion, hurt, defensiveness, all in one blink. I didn't mean that the way it sounds, she said quickly. How did you mean it? She took a shaky breath, hugging herself. I just don't get why you're so angry. I'm not angry, I said. Then why are you doing this? I almost laughed. Because that was the problem, wasn't it? They didn't understand what this even was. They couldn't name it. Couldn't see it. You think this is about a gift, I said. Or a mug. Or some forgotten thank you. Hanifa's eyes widened. Wait, what mug? It doesn't matter. A beat passed. Then another. She stepped forward slightly, careful not to cross whatever invisible line she sensed between us. You always act like nothing bothers you, she said finally. And that hit differently. Like she thought that was the point. Like it was a trait I adopted on purpose, something I wore proudly. Invincibility. I looked at her, really looked. If I ever said I wasn't okay, I replied, none of you would have known what to do with it. Her face cracked open. Just a little. Zoya, that's not fair. Isn't it? She didn't answer right away. Her breath fogged between us. The snow fell silently over everything. We never meant to hurt you, she said quietly. I know, I said. You never meant to see me either. She blinked, and her eyes turned glassy. I see you now. I believed that she believed it. But it was too late for belief. Too late for now. You see me because I stopped giving, I said. Not before. Not when I was scraping by and still helping everyone else feel whole. Hanifa said nothing. Behind her, the house stood like a monument, festive lights glowing, laughter still faintly audible. Nothing had changed inside. Not really. She reached out, like she wanted to hug me, but her hands stayed suspended in the air. Just let me explain, she said. To everyone. We didn't know. I nodded slowly. I know you didn't. I got into the car, shut the door, and didn't look back. Some silences don't need to be broken. Some exits aren't made for drama, just dignity. I drive in silence. The snow soft against the windshield like the world is whispering, keep going. The road winds away from Abadan, away from everything. The noise, the expectations, the polite betrayal dressed as tradition. My hands grip the steering wheel tighter than they need to. I don't even notice until my knuckles start to ache. Another message lights up my phone in the passenger seat. I don't check it. I don't need to. By now they've realized I'm gone. But not why. Not really. They'll call it dramatic, ungrateful, confusing. That's fine. Let them try to explain me to each other. They never bothered to ask me directly. The cabin is small, tucked in the Ibarapa hills, hidden behind trees that lived longer than any of my regrets. I've had this place booked for months, paying in installments quietly. The same way I've always handled everything that mattered to me. The moment I step inside, I feel something shift. Not loudly, just gently, like the air finally recognizes me. No shouting. No smells of food I cooked for others. No demands wrapped in smiles. Just stillness. I light a fire first. The wood catches quickly. I'm good at building warmth from scratch. Have been for years. Only this time, I'm the only one who gets to feel it. I make tea next. Real tea. Hibiscus leaves I packed in a jar 2 weeks ago. I pour the hot water slowly and sit by the fire, cross-legged, my coat still on, the heat slowly crawling back into my fingers. Then I reach for the bag. The envelopes are still there. All of them. Red. Tied with ribbon. Names written in gold ink that took me 3 hours to perfect. I lay them out in front of me on the rug like pieces of a story I'm done telling. Farouk. Hanifa. Titi. Mama. I trace my finger across the name Mama and feel nothing. Not because I don't love her, but because I finally love myself more. Not in a loud, social media affirmation kind of way. Just in a quiet, I don't need to explain this anymore kind of way. I don't know what I'll do with the envelopes. Maybe I'll donate the money. Maybe I'll use it for something reckless. Something that makes no sense on paper, but feels like freedom. Like a painting class in Lagos. Or a trip to Ghana. Or just rent for a place with silence and a lock I control. For the first time in years, my generosity has nowhere to go. And instead of guilt, I feel relief. I sip my tea and stare at the flames. This is mine. This silence. This air. This breath. This fire. This moment. I don't need to be needed. I don't need to be praised. I don't need to be useful. I just need to be. And in this cabin, far away from everyone who mistook my giving for indestructibility, I finally am. The envelopes are still full. But for the first time in my life, so am I. The phone hasn't stopped buzzing since morning. It's sitting face up on the kitchen counter, flashing like a signal flare, one I refuse to answer. I can see the names as they pop up. Mama, Farouk, Aunt Titi. Familiar names. Familiar demands, dressed up this time as concern. I don't move. The cabin is quiet except for the soft groan of the wind pressing against the window. I'm wrapped in the same blanket I fell asleep in, my tea cold untouched. I stare out at the trees. Everything here is still, peacefully indifferent to who's trying to reach me. Another message comes in. Then another. I can hear the slight vibration through the wood, like the phone itself is growing impatient. I don't need to pick it up. I already know what they're saying. The same rhythm, just a different chorus. I walk over, not to reply, just to look. 6 missed calls. 9 messages. All of them layered like years of my life I can't get back. Mama's at the top. Zoya, that rent you didn't cancel anything, right? No greeting. No, are you okay? Just straight to the point. Her point. Farouk, can we talk? He never could before. Not really. Not when it mattered. Aunt Titi, did you really stop the payments? I can almost hear her voice, tight, nervous, pretending it's not panic. I scroll without feeling much. Then one line catches my eye. You're being dramatic. That one makes me laugh. Quiet, bitter. Dramatic. I say out loud like I'm trying the word on. If I had collapsed, overworked, maybe they'd have called me strong. If I had kept giving until I bled, they'd say I was generous. But walking away in silence, this is too much for them. It doesn't fit their narrative. So now I'm dramatic. I flip the phone face down and walk away. They're not really asking about me. They're asking about the systems I broke, the dependability I removed, the unspoken contracts I've burned by choosing myself. And I don't care. Not today. I sit back down by the fire, letting the last of the warmth touch my legs. I sip the tea even though it's bitter now, and I stare out the window at the trees, still untouched, still free. There's no anger anymore, just this strange, quiet satisfaction. Like I've finally put down a load I wasn't meant to carry. I won't reply. Not because I'm punishing them, but because I finally understand I don't have to explain my peace to people who never noticed my pain. I walk slowly around the cabin, letting the silence do what it always does. Show me the truth I keep trying to avoid. The red envelopes are still spread across the floor, untouched, unopened, like evidence of a trial that never happened. I kneel beside them and touch each one, not to move them, but to finally see them. Not as gifts, not as symbols, just for what they are. Quiet pleas I no longer need to make. This wasn't generosity. It was a ritual, a desperate attempt to be seen through service. I thought if I gave enough, stayed quiet enough, sacrificed enough, I'd earn a kind of love that didn't need to be asked for. But that wasn't love. It was expectation. Unspoken, unchecked, heavy. They didn't mean to hurt me. I know that now. But they never stopped to wonder if I needed anything in return. They saw my love as a duty, my silence as peace, my giving as infinite. And I allowed it, because somewhere along the way, I started to believe that my worth was wrapped in their comfort. That if I stopped helping, I'd stop mattering. But I haven't disappeared. I'm still here. And for the first time, I feel like I belong to myself. I smile, not because I'm happy. Not yet, but because I'm free. Not from them, but from the version of me who needed their approval like oxygen, who twisted herself into usefulness, hoping someone would look up and say, I see you. I see myself now. I pick up the envelopes one last time and place them back in the bag, not out of sadness, but clarity. I sit by the fire, tea in hand, the warmth creeping back into my fingers. No more proving, no more performing, no more pretending. Just this moment, just me. And that's enough. Do you think I made the right choice by finally walking away? Or should I have given them one more chance to understand me? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like mine speak to you, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you don't miss the next one.